Hello everyone and welcome back to Sports Today. Now obviously the World Cup for Indian fans at least got off to a rather good start thanks to a rather convincing victory against Australia, but the action continues and today we are back in Hyderabad for New Zealand versus Netherlands. And the toss news that is just coming in, the Netherlands have in fact won the toss and they have opted to field first. Now, before we go into the merits, pros and cons of that particular decision, it is worth taking a look a little bit really at just how it is that both teams have started the World Cup. And of course, we're just one match in, but it is safe to say that both sides could not have had a more contrasting start to the World Cup. For New Zealand, it was sweet revenge because they managed to avenge, let's say, that loss in the 2019 World Cup final against England by beating them rather convincingly in the opening game of this year's edition of the World Cup. So the result of that thumping win, which of course saw centuries from both Devon Conway and Rachin Ravindra, both of whom incidentally were on ICC ODI World Cup debut, it has taken them to the top of the table with the best net run rate. Conversely, England sit bottom with the worst net run rate. As for the Netherlands, well, their first game was against Pakistan, and whilst they did show flashes of some brilliance, remember they did manage to get 3 rather early wickets against Pakistan, they were on the losing side in the end due to 2 reasons. One, they let Pakistan recover when they had them on the mat, and more importantly, despite the fact that they were chasing a relatively modest target by today's standards, and even considering the kind of batting that they have, they ended up kind of losing their head in the middle overs and then ended up losing the plot really, because despite the fact that it was or should have been a comparatively easier chase, or an easy chase at least if they kept wickets in hand, they didn't do that and thus ended up on the losing side. So really for both sides, as I said, rather contrasting start as far as how it is that their World Cup campaigns began. But also let's quickly take a look at before we go to the playing 11s, and we'll get to that in a bit, let's take a look at what it is that we're expecting from this particular pitch. Now you'd think Hyderabad means, okay, Hyderabad last time around you saw plenty of let's say a spin on offer for the Netherlands, especially. You remember their off spinners were really making merry on that pitch, but this time around it's not going to be anywhere as, let's say, batting friendly. So they're playing on not the central strip but one on the side strips, which means you will get one boundary which is smaller. So there's one boundary which is about 62 meters, the other is 69 meters. So not the boundaries, not really massive boundaries. And what is even more interesting is that this particular pitch sports, at least according to the pitch report that has come in, a very different characteristic than the one where Pakistan beat Netherlands. In fact, this particular pitch is an absolute batter's paradise. So it is very hard, it's very flat. We are expecting a big score on this particular pitch. So, and the breaking news, of course, that we gave you as far as the toss was concerned, is that the Netherlands have won the toss and they have opted to field first. Now, this could really end one of 2 ways, because again, you saw what it is that New Zealand did in batter-friendly conditions at Ahmedabad. They absolutely plundered an England bowling that on paper looked very good, but on that particular time just were not good enough to, let's say, make any kind of an impact, considering that conditions had not only eased out, but they were not getting any kind of assistance whatsoever off the pitch, in the air, however it is you look at it. So New Zealand getting a chance to bat first against the Netherlands side that, with all due respect, they do have some good operators, but probably not at the level that will trouble a New Zealand, an England, a South Africa, an Australia and India. None of these teams will really be that troubled by the Netherlands bowling, because again, they don't really have express pacers and their spinners are at best mostly finger spinners who will look for consistency rather than wicket taking ability. So I would definitely say New Zealand start favourites in this match, that goes without saying. But considering the kind of batting form that their players were showing, I think you're expecting another at least above 300 350 score really from New Zealand. And even though they're batting first, I think that should be an easier thing for them, because there's really absolutely nothing in terms of scoreboard pressure. You're getting good batting conditions. We know the weather is fine at Hyderabad. I think it's a good time to go out there, express yourselves, and against a bowling lineup who, with all due respect, will not pose as much of a challenge as top ICC nations team might. So definitely New Zealand would be starting favourites, and they would also really relish the fact that they've gotten a chance to bat first, because I think if it were the other way around, if New Zealand had won the toss, and they would in theory most likely have opted to field first too, just like the Netherlands did, then you might have seen the Netherlands bundled out relatively cheaply, because again, we know that New Zealand, despite the fact that they're missing out on a certain team Saudi, do have a fairly good bowling lineup. You've seen how effective it is. Their spinners were Rachin Ravindra, Mitchell Santner were very, very good, and of course even their pace department, the likes of a Matt Henry and of course Trent Bolt, has been phenomenal. So they do have a very good bowling lineup, and I think Netherlands would in fact have, let's say, struggled to get anything above maybe 170, 200, which you would have expected New Zealand to chase down in maybe 25 overs, given the way they are batting, and also given the fact that the pitch here has changed. In fact, don't forget, they've moved to a side strip, so it's not exactly in the middle of the ground. You'll get one boundary which is slightly shorter, but even the longer boundary is only 69 meters, so hardly really matters. In all though, I think this will be a good time really if you're a New Zealand batter. No scoreboard pressure, go out there, express yourselves, play some good shots, and look to get a few big runs. These are the kind of matches which are there for just that. So it is in many ways good time for them. And don't forget, for New Zealand, their early fixtures are actually pretty good. So if the thought process will be there that this is a long World Cup. You've got 9 matches really to play. So from those 9 matches, you want to be winning at least 5 or 6 really to realistically be in contention for that top 4 spot. You may as well get some good wins early on, so that later on you're not playing catch up, because remember, once it gets to the latter stages of the tournament, then really you are in fact playing catch up, due to the very simple fact that you are looking at the mathematical permutations and combinations as far as not only points but even net run rate. And then not only are you dependent, let's say, on yourself to, let's say, win pretty much every game if you are still with an outside chance of qualifying, but you will also be dependent on others dropping points. So that is not the best of situations to find yourself in. But right now, still very much early days for both of these teams, and you'd hope, if you're a New Zealand fan, that you can get a few early wins and ensure that the pressure is not there so much during the latter stages of the tournament to not only get wins but get, let's say, convincing wins, and then also hope that other teams drop points or certain results go your way, because again, that's a very, very tough way. I mean, sure, it can happen, but you're leaving a lot to chance. Right now, early days of the tournament, get maybe 3-4 wins out of the first 5, and you're pretty much set come the business end of the tournament, where you only have 4 games left, the second half of the tournament. And New Zealand, actually, their schedule is fairly kind on them in that regard. So early on, they aren't playing too many tough matches. So what we'll do is now is we'll go over the playing 11s for, let's say, both the teams. So we have the playing 11 for New Zealand here, and as you can see on your screens, it's pretty much along, let's say, expected lines, because if you're looking at how it is that they are lining up, you've got, of course, Devon Conway and Will Young. Then you've got Rachin Ravindra and Daryl Mitchell. Rachin Ravindra continues, of course, playing in that top order. There's Daryl Mitchell. Tom Latham continues to be the wicketkeeper captain option in the absence of, the captain option rather, in the absence of Kane Williamson. And it was expected really that Kane wouldn't be playing this match. I think the realistic best case will be that he's fit for the next game. Glenn Phillips, Mark Chapman, Mitchell Santner, which means you are batting very, very deep indeed. Matt Henry, Lockie Ferguson returns, by the way, and there is, of course, Trent Bolt. So interesting lineup really if you're looking at how it is that New Zealand are going. They're playing with 2 spinners, but there's still no place for an Ish Sodhi, who you'd remember was actually playing games for them, and of course adds a different dimension, because again, Rachin Ravindra and Santner are 2 very similar bowlers in the sense they're both left arm orthodox, not big turners of the ball per se, and they're not gonna guarantee you bundles of wickets, unlike Sodhi, who being a wrist spinner will be more attacking. These 2 are similar bowlers, so it is interesting that they've gone with both, but I do also feel like they feel the need, let's say, to pack their batting, because if Santner is coming in at 8, then you've got Matt Henry, Lockie Ferguson and Trent Bolt, then that's a pretty deep batting lineup, because at least till number 8 you have proper batters. Santner, by the way, might be batting at number 8, but he's someone who is actually good enough to be batting pretty much anywhere in the top or the middle order as well. So it's a good batting lineup, and of course no surprises really when you're looking at how things are. It was along expected lines. You knew the only two major changes that they could have potentially made was bringing back a Kane Williamson and bringing back Lockie Ferguson. Now Kane was never really going to be in contention for this particular match, still working on his fitness, still getting there bit by bit. But Lockie Ferguson, there was an expectation he'd be back, and that is exactly how it is for the Black Caps. So really good lineup, you can say, pretty strong lineup, and you would be hoping, if you're someone like a Will Young, if you're a Daryl Mitchell, probably didn't get as much opportunity to bat in the last game, you'd think now's the perfect time to go out there, get some runs. Again, the Netherlands team, not necessarily one of the strongest, and on that note, let's just take a look at the Netherlands side. You have, if you're looking at the Netherlands team, again, a pretty strong lineup, at least by their standards, and a relatively settled one as well. So of course you've got Vikramjit Singh, you've got Max O'Dowd, you've got Colin Ackerman. That is a pretty settled batting lineup up top. You would expect Vikramjit Singh and Max O'Dowd to be there. That is pretty much how they've always lined up. Then Colin Ackerman, Bas de Leede, Teja Nidamunru, Scott Edwards comes in at number 6. Then you've got Sybren Engelbrecht and Roelof van der Merwe at number 8. Then Ryan Clean, Aryan Dutt, and of course Paul van Meekeren. Now, if you're looking at Sybren Engelbrecht, he is, let's say, the only player. There's an interesting story really about him. He has previously featured for South Africa at the under-19 level, and in the entire World Cup, if you're looking at all the 10 teams and each and every one of the World Cup squads, he's the only player to have actually, let's say, who's playing this World Cup or was selected for this World Cup without having even won a single cap for his nation. So no, he's never played a senior international game, and he will in fact be playing let's say he'll be playing his first senior game at World Cup level against New Zealand. So really, if you're looking at him, no pressure whatsoever. Making a debut, it's a World Cup match against the New Zealand side who are consistently there and thereabouts as far as the top 4 goes. No pressure. So as we say, the major changes really, for the New Zealand side, the only major change they've made is they brought in Lockie Ferguson for James Neesham, and of course for the Netherlands, there's 2 major changes. They brought in Sybren Engelbrecht and Ryan Clean. So really, if you're looking at how it is that the teams go, not too many changes just yet. Of course, with the South Africans, with New Zealand, this is one expected change that they were making, bringing in a Lockie Ferguson. For Netherlands, really, it seems to be a case of maybe just playing the conditions a little bit. That's why you got an Engelbrecht and Ryan Clean coming in. So these are of course the major team changes, and right now we're about 15 minutes away from play getting underway. This New Zealand team, as I said, looking very, very strong indeed, and looking like definitely the clear-cut obvious favorites in this particular case, because they are going to be that team who you would expect to stroll through. And in fact, even at the toss, if you look at what it is that Tom Latham had said, he said that no, we definitely have had a bowl as well, but I don't think they'd be too disappointed to get the chance to bat in front of, let's say, the bowling lineup that the Netherlands have presented them, because again, definitely a bit of a mismatch in that regard. Realistically, Netherlands' best chance of points might come against teams like a Bangladesh, Afghanistan, maybe even a Sri Lanka if you're going that far, but otherwise Netherlands will be definitely starting the underdogs in this particular case. But best thing that they could have done was of course win the toss, choose to bowl. So that is actually how this match is going to be playing about. Of course, we're expecting that potentially you could be seeing some interesting action when you're talking about how it is that the match is going to go, because again, New Zealand have started this World Cup like a house on fire. Even if they were beating England, it wouldn't necessarily be considered an upset. But the fact that they not only beat England, they absolutely hammered England would have been a bigger sign of intent. I mean, if you're looking at New Zealand, they were coming into this World Cup with not too many people fancying them. Most people thought that besides the big 3 of Australia, India and England, maybe it would be a tussle between a Pakistan or a South Africa for that 4th spot. But right now, Pakistan seem way below in contention, and it seems like the tussle for that top 4 would be between New New Zealand and South Africa. And New Zealand, for me, do seem to have edged that a little bit because they seem to have all their bases covered. With South Africa, yes, batting lineup is very, very explosive, very power packed. Bowling doesn't give me as much confidence, whereas with New Zealand, man, they are covered in all departments, and it is very, very nice to see. So that is our preview for this particular match. It is, of course, New Zealand versus Netherlands, and if you're just joining us, Netherlands are going to be bowling first, so stay tuned. You might very well see some batting records being shattered if New Zealand can in fact have their way and dominate and impose themselves on a Netherlands team who, whilst improving, may still have a few levels to go before catching up to the top teams in cricket. So that's our preview. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Again, if you enjoy our work, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tap the bell icon, leave us a comment. Who do you think will be favorites? Follow us also on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and don't forget to download the AajTak app. Plus, if you're already on the channel, you could go ahead, check out some interesting reactions from whether it be the likes of Sunil Gavaskar, Suresh Raina, and of course some more interesting videos that we've done on the India-Australia match, which of course saw plenty of, let's say, records broken, and there were some interesting videos all up on Sports Today. Go ahead, check that out, and stay tuned to Sports Today. Plenty more coming your way. For now though, from my side, it's bye-bye.